Good afternoon on what is a bright, warm and sunny day. It is Wednesday the 18th of May and I have some parcels to open and a nice hot cup of tea. And the next one I'm going to open is out of this big box. So opening up this paper, got this big. Having a wrapping and to finally get through. I have to say this was fantastically well wrapped, as you can tell. Because what I actually pulled, a minute of unwrapping. So what I actually pulled out of this was that, which was a very nice copy of the first edition of Pendragon, and I've already done an unboxing of that. And it was really fantastic to look at this and just enjoy how simple and clean and tidy this first edition of the rulebook and game was, how simply focused it was. That kind of changed a bit over time, but it's going back to that, I think, essentially with 5th edition and then the forthcoming 6th edition. But what I've also got in there is Knights Adventurous, which is a latest supplement. When did that come out? That's 1990. We're talking, that's sort of 85. It's 85, yes. The next thing that came out, I believe, was the Nobles book. Okay, which includes, does it include? It says it includes. Inside a Tower. It includes a 16-page fold-out called Inside a Tower. Well, I think basically it's inside a... Okay, whether or not it's actually missing that, I don't know. But anyway, Nobles book. Noblemen are knights of great distinction who hold large fiefs and bear titles like Count and Duke. Each noble has a personal retinue and leads his own vassal knights. Noblemen live in castles and wage private wars. Each nobleman stands near his king and performs important duties. This supplement tells you how to roleplay a nobleman for King Arthur and Pendragon. Included are nobility, duties and benefits for both players of bannerets, counts, dukes and kings and their characters. Hosting a tournament, 5 simple steps. Land ownership, annual economic procedures, standard 5s, generating a fief, taxes, building a castle, war, and rules for sieges, raids and invasions. Player battle procedures, battlements, and illustrated examples of typical fortifications, including a 16-page fold-out explanation of the parts of a castle. So, again, it's a lot of cases when you look back at these books and you can date the period from when they were published. And here we have essentially, this is, as I said, this came out, would have been 1980, does it say? 1986, so it came out a year after Pendragon, so staple bound, as was all the supplements for the period, if they weren't in a box set like this. Chaosium had yet to go perfect bound, which would happen in the sort of like later 80s and into the 90s, of course, and ever since. And now we have lovely hardbacks. So we get into basic introduction, and we've got samples of essentially the reference here is little maps here that sort of like indicate holdings. So we have sort of like a very quick sketch map of a seaside holding. There we go, to show you that. And then we have an ancient hill fort. Now, I'm kind of, I mean, I grew up in an area where there are roughly, I mean, basically I've heard it said there are about 30 to 40 hill forts within the local county where I grew up, and there are certainly within about 5 miles of where I grew up. There were three or four hill forts, and I absolutely found them a fascinating additions to the landscape, because they've become woven into the landscape over time, because they've not been used. They've been abandoned for over best part of 2,000 years, but you know, they are still accessible. You can walk them, and you can imagine what they would have been like in past years. Anyway, so I have to say, you know, this tiny little map here kind of doesn't do them justice. You know, you have this picture of Camelot on the front, and it's amazing. You know, basically the idea of the white walls of Camelot, and you have an idealised view of the castle. But in their day, hill forts would have been the same. They would have been these massive fortifications and living spaces. But anyway, okay, so we have an explanation of the degrees of nobility from knight upwards, all the way up to, you know, we go through ordinary knights, nobles, barons, counts, earls. I'm thinking of Earl Court there. That's all the way up to kings, and we've got a list of other titles there as well, and we've got a mixed holding there as well, and we've got options for creating a French character. Now this will be greatly expanded for when it came to the 4th edition, which is the big thick book that Chaosium did of did for Pendragon. Then we get a discussion of heraldry, so a more detailed explanation than in the core rules. And again, I would have been fascinated. I was fascinated by heraldry when I was a teenager. Basically, a whole interest by the whole sort of like the whole science and art of it. Not that I did a great delve on it, but I've got a couple of books on it and read. And then we get into the effects of sort of marriage, and we'll have that, how that affects heraldry. So there's a big essay in here. Then, as promised, tournaments, complete with a map of tournament grounds, and again that's very useful, sort of like for here are the various areas, and you kind of get them sort of a version of them, I suppose, if you go to somewhere like Warwick Castle, where you have the big events. But it's very much a sort of like a tourist thing, of course, rather than what the medieval version. So we have tournament procedure for host and the game master, how to handle tournaments, and then we have the tournament rules for glory. So really, this is almost acting as a companion. Well, okay, here if you don't like those rules, here are some more different ones. So we've got lists of awards for combat, mission awards, group glory. Gloop glory, that's a entirely different game. I hate to think what that is. And we've got a pen sketch of Tintagel down there, and a very strong castle. Again, I'm not a huge fan of these tiny little illustrations. They are kind of not very interesting in themselves. Then we have a bit more details. So we've got glory for different types of foes faced, and then inside a siege tower, nice illustration there. The map there is, you've got a city with a castle. But I mean, if you think back in when this was published, 1986, you wouldn't necessarily have had these access to sort of like this information. You really would have to go and search for it, to go to a library, and so it would have been useful. I'm not saying by today's standards they're a bit underwhelming. I would say. By the standards of 1986, different. We've got a coastal Highland county and a Highland holding and a Castellan's holding, so different ones there, and the section on the economy, because part of you would have a steward to do this. Part of the knight's responsibility is to see to the well-being of his the population under his control, and his vassals, and then and his peasantry, and also see that not only basically generates an income not only for himself but also so that he can pay his tithes to the Duke and then upwards. So we've got a section on how to draw the section on drawing the maps and mapping symbols, or useful. And then we have the yearly economics procedure, complete with basically sort of tables for that, annual events, bringing your fief to life, and once you've determined your annual income and your annual harvest, you get into building projects and committing to military campaigns. Again, that's where your money is going. You are attempting to improve your holdings and your fief, and contribute to your lordships doing activities, conducting campaigns, and so on. So we've got inside a tower. Again, nice cutaway, and we've got a little bit of a map of an actual castle. That's Pembroke Castle there. And a watchtower, and then we've got example items just randomly generated, which the GM can use before we get into Arthur's Britain. And this is 27 major kingdoms of Britain during the period, and looking at an average county, collecting taxes. I mean, and this is sort of like almost for the minutiae of sort of like running a game away from the adventuring table, adventuring phase of your campaign. We've got a fortified city. Nice image of a hare, salient for the front of for your shield device. And then we get into, and this is all about building a castle and fortifications, rings of defence, garrison, special terrain effects, and so on. Before we have actually a tiny little map of Camelot, and obviously it's Camelot you see on the front of the cover. Different castles, so large castle, and that's what's that? Castle de Gorman. And descriptions of sort of like the different works. So basically a complete guide to building a castle, and a basic illustration of inside a wall. What does a wall look like? Fantastic illustrations, but whether or not you want to go into that details is another matter. Before we get on to war, so that's handling raids, but raids procedures, so raiding others or being raided. Or useful content, because that could happen. It's there for essentially, because your player characters will have rivalries with other knights, even potential. And then there's obviously you're going to get raided by Saxons. That happens a lot. Sieges. Handling attacks. Got a nice illustration of a mangonel there. And then a partially protected town. And the thing is, these all feel a bit sort of like a little bit square, if you sort of say a little less organic in their design, but nonetheless that you can use them as the basis of sort of drawing your own castles or fortified towns and so on. Handling the assault. And then we get into proper invasions and battles. Right up to preparing for battles, the outcome of battle, making the battle rolls, company based where you've got actually Beaumaris Castle there, and a Pendragon land record sheet. Side 2 before we go on to the index. So altogether, that's the Nobles book for running your quite a high level Pendragon campaign, especially as your characters, you know, basically you start off with a minor fee, you might get rewarded larger ones, and you know, and progress in the campaign. This is a really fantastic and useful book for developing sort of like the long-term kind of details of a campaign, and really a lot of that kind of winter phase activities interspersed by sort of like the necessity of being of withstanding a raid, or going on a raid, or actually engaging in an invasion and so on. So 1986 Nobles book for Pendragon. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this unboxing of the Nook. If you have, then please do click on the like button down below. If you've got any comments or feedback, I appreciate you taking the time to post those. And lastly, if you want to be alerted to yet more unboxings of the Nook, where you will see me out here with a box and a book or game which I will unbox and chat about to the best extent of my knowledge for roughly 10 minutes or so, all of course accompanied by a nice hot cup of tea, then please do click on that subscribe button down below. In the meantime, thanks again for watching, and I'll be back again soon with another unboxing of the Nook. Bye for now.